And I'm Srinivas Ramanujam, the CEO of Will Grow India. Along with me is the head of Startup India, Asta Grover, Rama Kannan, who's both a mentor and an advisor to many startups, and earlier in the Invent program, mentored IIM Calcutta Innovation Park. Then there's Chand Das here with us, who's been supporting IIT Kanpur's incubation team. He's also an angel investor, plus a mentor, a coach to many enterprises. We have Arun Venkatesan, who used to lead the healthcare practice in Will Grow India, but now runs Will Grow US, which is building capacity of incubators around the world. And there's Azhar, who is the program manager for this program on incubating incubators. And last but not the least is Shankar from GIZ, with whose support this entire program is being kicked off. Yeah, so that's just a very quick intro. And Azhar, do you want to take it here, give a small introduction about the program before I go to Asta and talk about Startup India and their initiatives and how they're helping build the ecosystem for entrepreneurs in this country?
Sure. So I'm sharing my screen. So first of all, thank you so much, Srinivas, for pulling me in. And also thanks to GIZ and Ministry of MSME for giving the opportunity to build the ecosystem while incubating the incubators. So today we have an official launching the incubator. Before that, we have incubated 5 to 6 incubators in India, especially IIMs and IITs under the Invent program. And also we have supported other incubators in terms of designing the business model, roadmap, and all the stuff. So today we are officially launching this program, and I'm going to little bit started with the Will Grow missions and what exactly we are doing. So Will Grow basically started in 2001, and we have incubated more than 345 companies in last 20 years. That I will give you brief after that, but our focus area mostly in the impact segment, healthcare accelerator, powering livelihood. This is our initiative that we have done in last 20 years. So these are the current programs as you've seen on the screen. So most of the program is related to the incubation of the early stage startups. So here's a number, what we have achieved in the last 20 years, 315 companies that we have incubated, and we have touched around 20 million poor people in the BOPs. That is one of the USP that we have achieved in the last 20 years. So our India experience, as I told you, we have incubated 4 very major incubators in India. One is the IIT Kanpur, which is working under the banner of SIAC. So where we have incubated around 3 years, we have worked with them, and we train them into incubate social enterprises. So same as other incubators also, KIT, IIM Calcutta, and Startup Oasis, all 4 incubators work under the Invent program. So here is the incubators that we are talking about today. So that program is totally supported by MSME and GIZ, and we are thankful to both of the institutions that give a chance to implement this program. So the program basically will develop the capacities of incubators by providing different types of initiatives that I will discuss later. So under this program, we have a very focused 5 active tools that we are going to use to incubate incubators. Before that, I will tell you that under this program, the first cohort supported by GIZ, which is 20 incubators to be participate. And these 20 incubators are mixed incubators. Some of them are mature. Some of them are mid-size incubator, which is not more than 3 to 4 years old. And some of them are the very new incubators, means 1 year, less than 1 year, they have started their operations. So we have received a lot of applications, and we are thankful to the ecosystem that they believe on us, that Will will help them in the capacity building. So we have received a lot of application. Out of that, we can select the top 20 incubators, and the program will be start from today itself. So the five major area where we are working, it is a one-on-one mentoring. So if you see on the panel, you met in the panel that Chandas, Arun, Srinivas, Rama, all people are there. They are advisors of this program as well. So they will work as advisors, and they will provide a one-on-one mentoring to each incubator in setting up their roadmap, in setting up their business model. Same as the capacity building sessions, we will take 4 to 5 days session on capacity building, especially focus on that playbook that we have developed. So that playbook that we have developed for the incubators in the scenario of Indian ecosystem, and that will be used during the capacity building sessions. Same as the third point is very important because we are believing on the hand holding. So therefore, we are engaging our portfolio managers, means Wilgrow portfolio managers. These portfolio managers will work with the incubators portfolio managers, so they can learn from the peer learning. Or for example, if some incubators have a problem in setting up the portfolio management tools, so our portfolio manager will help them in setting up the portfolio manager in terms of, or they will alter or they will redesign the portfolio manager tools for the particular incubator to run the incubation in the sector specific. Fourth one is very important, is a fundraising demos, because we also believe the sustainability of incubator is a must, and without sustainability it is not possible to run the incubation system. So therefore we will provide a demo session with some of the prominent donors of India, especially for the bilateral organization and CSR. We will call these people and arrange one-to-one demos with incubators so they can interact and build a partnership for our future projects. And also we will build the joint partnerships, because Wilgrow is running a lot of activities under the incubation. Plus we are also running a lot of initiatives like iPitch, Unconventions. And also every year we are coming with new programs like accelerating the agri companies, accelerating the healthcare companies. So we will build a partnership with these incubators to co-work or co-implement our programs as well. So I'm not going to the challenges of the incubator because this is very much aware, but I'm giving you some insight what exactly the solution that we will provide during this program. The program will design like that and depend on 6 major activities, which is first is diagnostic social panel. So diagnostic will help we will reach out to each incubator, find out the problem and solution from each incubator, and
Sir, I'm going to cut you in and just jump right in, because I'm sure we can share all this information on a link, if you will, to our audience, because sure. I believe we have more than 100 incubators around the country who have tuned in here. And I want to use this time to hear from folks who've been some of the most ardent supporters of incubators. Yeah.
Sure.
And why don't you just leave it there, and then you can move out of sharing, sharing your screen so we can see the panel. But in a nutshell, folks, we want to work initially with 20 incubators around the country. So, Azhar, can you stop sharing your screen, please? Yeah, thank you. We want to work initially with at least 20 incubators, share some of our learnings, our best practices, the kind of knowledge we've built, such that, there are others who can learn from our experiences. The last 20 years has been a very enriching experience for us. But a lot of it is not possible without some really conducive policies. And that's where I want to jump right into, because I have a very interesting and useful panel here. But first up, I want to go to Asta. Because Asta, India, frankly, has such a large group of incubators. I think there are already more than 500. And truly, the government's policies are also very conducive to setting up one. We're designing so many initiatives to support entrepreneurship, to support creation of jobs, to help communities get strengthened and livelihoods get better. And as the head of Startup India, once an incubator is set up, I think you're going to have great perspective to share with the incubators who are listening. See, once an incubator is set up, how do you see them grow? What are your views on seeing how they can become sustainable to keep creating the impact on the communities that they're set up to serve, right? And can you speak about some of Startup India's initiatives to support India's startup ecosystem?
Sure. Thank you so much, Srinivas, for hosting me among this delighted panel. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, Azhar, for the background on the program that is being launched today. Very useful. I think it will go a long way in supporting the ecosystem. Hi to everyone. I'm Asta. I head the Startup India team at Invest India. Being a founding member of the scene, I personally have seen the incubator ecosystem change about 7x from where we started. Back in 5 years, I knew about only 100, 150 incubators who were there. Today, when we did an ecosystem mapping, there were about more than 700 plus incubators across states, across departments, some supported by private players as well. What we realized in this journey of ecosystem mapping was some incubators, there were a handful of incubators doing exceptionally well from where companies were coming out. But there were two mindset changes which an incubator was able to bring to the incubator. One, convincing students to take up entrepreneurship as a career option, which in my opinion was very, very important and which wasn't happening a few years back. People were wearied of taking entrepreneurship as a career. So I see incubators instilling this positive thought among the entrepreneurs by providing this support, by being that support system to back upon. Second, I saw that while we started as a, to be very blunt, as a co-working or a rental model from an incubator space, I saw a bunch of incubators extremely passionate about this and taking that extra mile to provide that mentorship, lab support, to take the support from the ecosystem and help the startups on this. The gap that I see honestly between the incubation support that we have today is still the need to be sustainable. There are, like you mentioned, policies to support funding in the initial few years, but somewhere the focus on being sustainable, on somewhere the focus on self-generating revenues, and somewhere the focus to have that far vision that I have to sustain and meet these expenses is lacking, and that's where we appreciate support of players like you in building these capacities of the ecosystem. Now, what we did as a part of DPIT and Startup India was first, of course, identifying what is the gap that we have to address, and that's where we came up with the number of 718 incubators to be precise, across states, across government departments. Second, we thought that there is, we need to go at a state, at a district level to support this ecosystem. So through the state ranking framework, which works as a capacity building as well as a cooperative federalism between states, we first, in the first edition, we encouraged them to set up these incubators, and more support was provided. And in the second edition, we wanted proof. Now that your incubators have been set up, tell me how many seats were utilized, tell me what was the impact. And to our surprise, in the second edition, we ourselves were so happy to know that about 10 lakh plus square feet of incubation area was created across the country, and more than 300 incubators were upgraded also, and about 7,000 seats were allocated to startups. So I'm only giving you numbers with respect to the seats. The funding impact, the number of funds set up to support the seed incubators is even higher. There are states like Andama who have went up to the extent of saying that there will be an initial innovation fund of 1 crore to support only setting up of incubators. To states like Assam who said that there will be a maximum 75% grant given to setting up of these incubators. So we saw the states taking up amazing practices in terms of setting up, providing grants, providing subsidies through these incubators, and the impact numbers were amazing. Now we are in the third phase where we figure out that one, good incubators have to be recognized and appreciated and highlighted to showcase the impact. It is no bigger, it is as great an impact through any CSR initiative or through any, ecosystem enablement activity. So one, highlighting the importance and role of these incubators, and second, enhancing their capacities further. Personally, for me, a good incubator is one which has a great and a passionate team to take this forward. And, focusing on capacity building of the incubator managers is what we are coming up with the next program on an immediate basis. And as you already know, and are a winner of the National Startup Awards for Incubators, congratulations, team will grow for that. Recognizing and providing this kind of support is where we are looking forward to, so that more and more people can avail this benefit. I think I'll take a pause here to hear the other members as well and answer any questions that may follow up.
Thank you, Asta. I think that was quite useful in at least laying the perspective on how the ecosystem has developed and how Startup India has played a role in pushing not just the union but also state policy in supporting entrepreneurship. Uh, I, with that context, Shankar, I want to ask you, what are your perspectives on GIZ's priorities? Because I know you're more a policy, but also intergovernment development organization. What are your priorities in helping build such key enterprise support organizations such as incubators? And what would be a sign of success for you? Like, for example, Asta mentioned one about training incubation managers. Is there anything else that you would like to see as a sign of success?
Thanks, Shrini, and thanks, Astha. That was very useful and very valid points. Many of the points that I was going to speak, you have already highlighted. And before I come to that question, let me briefly tell you the where we come from. So we are a bilateral agency, 100% owned by Government of Germany, and we work with a mandate which is agreed between Government of India and Government of Germany. So we get a mandate. Within that mandate, we work. We are a technical support, not for profit. So we don't have anything at stake. So the money that we use, we spend, that is the public money, the public, and of course there is a contribution from Government of India in kind. So this is where, as an entity, we are. So the project that I am working with is with Ministry of MSME. They are our counterpart. And this project is, on a larger level, that how do we make our SMEs, micro, small and medium enterprises, more innovative. So overall objective of this project, in which I am involved since last 6 years, and this is the last year, is how do we improve the innovation ecosystem in the country. And by innovation ecosystem, if there is a small enterprise, or let's say if there is a startup or anything, if they want to innovate, do they have required relevant support system which is accessible, which is competent, which they can utilize? Because the basic idea was that SME world is changing. SMEs in India no longer, SMEs in Agra no longer compete only with SMEs in Indore. Now they are competing with someone globally. So unless they innovate, they'll be out of business. So this is the larger mandate. By strengthening innovation ecosystem, my project is working. And how we are doing it? Now comes your question, that what are we doing with enterprise support organization? So primarily we are working at 3 levels. One is we work a lot with business membership organizations or industry associations. So we are working with around 100, 150 of them, right from the bigger ones, CII, FICCI, to the smaller cluster level associations. Again, strengthening their capacities, that how at a cluster level, state level, can they support these smaller organizations, including startups and SMEs, and that is one. Second, what we are doing is trying to bridge the industry and academia gap, or in other words, making the connect. So we have done several innovative measures that, whenever a student is there in the 3rd year, 4th year of a college, he comes up with an idea, and from there his initial entrepreneurship mind, it's taking shape. So we try to link him to give him the live problem which is faced by a unit, a SME unit, and he tries to work on it, and in the process, so this has been very successful. We have worked with over 1,000 ideas, and 600-700 of it has been developed into a product or process that has been adopted by SMEs. So this is one part of it, but on the other side, this is also helping in this shaping this startup and new ideas. And the third is our specific component, where we are strengthening the innovation and incubation ecosystem in the country. So when we look at it, or when I look at it from, I'm not an expert in incubation, but working in this sector more from a program management point of view, I feel that, as Astha was saying, that there are over 700 incubators in the country. Ministry of MSME itself, they have approved more than 330, 340, DST 120, Niti Aayog 80, then there are states, so all this. And not all these incubators are homogeneous. On the one hand, we have top 5-10% incubators, 40-50. Out of that also, 10-15 would be worldwide at a very creamy stage, but largely at the bottom of the pyramid, we have incubators, mostly in academic institutions, which has been formed because they either received some fund from government, or that institute wants to do something, but they have no clue, so they're not capacitated. So when I look at it, and because we come from policy side or public side, so I would be more interested in someone in the bulk of these incubators which lie at the bottom of the pyramid. How do we raise their capacities? So at GIZ, when we work at it, we work at it at 4-5 levels. One is we have mandate from ministry, so we are helping them establish few incubators in some of their tool rooms, technology centers. Second, we are trying to develop the capacities of incubators around, like this is one such forum, or like we have done several other programs, like we'll be doing this Indo-German startup exchange program or Indo-German virtual tour program, which will also get back to you with details, and I would be happy if many of the startups participating could participate. So these kind of capacity building programs, we have been supporting all the various incubators from IIM, even Calcutta, Ahmedabad, Kanpur, to take up various acceleration program challenges, COVID, post-COVID, so these kind. Third, where with GIZ, we as GIZ, where we can add value is bringing in the German experience or the international experience. So they're creating and establishing this network platform, connecting Indian incubators and startup ecosystem to them, and developing this knowledge material and tool. That's why I was very excited about this tool that you have developed in Wilgrow, and like we supported NASCOM for this studies and all. So this is in this sphere we work. Our prime objective is how do we strengthen innovation ecosystem, how do we strengthen the players who are involved in it. And when you talk about success, for me, I would be happy if, for example, when I go to see and you find out that there are incubator managers, despite the best of intention, they are unable to do it because they are not capacitated. They do not get enough support from their institutions and all. So for me, it would not be that they become sustainable, or if they, that they have, there are typical matrices or parameters on which you judge, whether you typically judge कि कितना fundraise kiya, successful exit, and employment generated. But I would be happy if, from a policy perspective, if you have incubators who are there in tier 2, tier 3 kind of cities, because each incubator has a different need. For example, we are working with Aurangabad. So if incubator in Aurangabad is able to guide that gentleman, nurture his idea to a particular stage, then at least he can go to the right kind of better incubators in that way. So for me, capacity building, of course, remains a major source, number one. Number two, when I see from German example, I'll just ending in 30 seconds. What distinguishes German ecosystem from Indian in terms of incubation or startup is concerned is they focus on two three key things. Private involvement is very high in Germany, which is growing in India, which we have accelerators coming up, joint programs coming up, but still not up to that level. That is one. Number two, I feel this academia and connect is lacking, or R&D institute and this connect with Indian incubators, because many of them are isolated in their own island. So this probably we can further enhance. What Astha is doing and this startup India platform is doing is providing transparency, in the sense all the information available at one portal. This is a very important thing, because in Germany you don't find startups going around. In India यहाँ पे बड़ा issue है कि साहब ये करना है नहीं करना है, कहाँ मिलेगा, क्या form है, so all this information at one place. This might look as a very trivial thing, but it's a very important thing. And lastly, overall जो sorry, I missed that point. So when I from GIZ perspective, we would like to partner with any of you present here in the panel, beyond it, for capacity building of incubator managers, for developing and bridging this networks and platforms, connecting this Indo-German thing, and trying something new, for which probably government doesn't have money to experiment, but we can use this common money to experiment something new, in a new way of capacity building, a new way of running program. So this is how I look at it. I do not know if I answered your question correctly, but this is the overall arena in which we are working and would
No,
be
Shankar,
interested.
you did.
Yeah.
No, Shankar, you did. I think the points you touched upon are some of the questions which someone has, Dr. Shivaji also has asked, is similar. And I'm going to come back to it. But before that, I want to get some of the experiences of Rama, Chand, and Arun, because you embody the living experience of building capacity across different parts of this country and across different kinds of incubators. So Rama, you've been both a mentor, a coach. You worked with IIM Calcutta. You've seen that journey, right? Can you share some of your experiences on mentoring an incubator, and something that probably it'll resonate with a lot of folks who are listening.
Yeah, thanks, Srini. And I think, I was listening to Asta and Shankar, and I thought this is exactly what Wilgrow's playbook, what Chand and I and Arun were kind of trained on, and how we led the programs in these institutes. So I was mentor for IIM Calcutta through the Will Grow program earlier for a few years, till from the start to the end of that program. And it speaks to what Astha talked about earlier. It was an incubator was about having a space, but that's not what, or maybe even just getting money, but that's not what it is. And Shankar later talked about how do you go into a tier 2 or a tier 3? How do you enhance their capacity? And I see a question from Dr. Shivaji on that. So that is exactly what Wilgrow's playbook, which we were doing, was first about the entire length of how do you scout for the right kind of organizations first to get in. Who are the innovative players? How do you actually find them? Where are you going to find them? What is the due diligence that you have to do to actually get them into your incubation system? How do you then, after that, if you have the right person and you decided to incubate them, how do you actually build their capacity to know how do you run an organization? How do you do a pilot? What is the product idea? So that's the entire diagnostic panel that when we bring in different experts in that particular field to identify and give them a first 100-day plan on how should they actually be doing. The milestones are checked, and people come back to, and actually also have a mentor who's attached both to the startup, and also there is of course a mentor with the incubator. The portfolio manager's capacity on how will they actually be building up the plan for the enterprise. How will you be assessing how they are doing? What is the help that they would need? Of course, getting the legal, that's what they're building the incubator's capacity to know the legal, the accounting, what are the other processes that they should be having. So those, and finally looking at what does success look like for the startup? What will they have very clear metrics on? How will you define? What is the follow-on funding, and connecting them to who are the other investors out there where they can come in and invest. So I'm not going to take long. I just wanted to, I see that there are many people to go further, Srini, so I don't want to take a lot of time to talk about all those. But I feel like, sorry.
I think you sort of very beautifully laid out the reality here, which is, an incubator's success relies a lot on the startup success. And so how do you even get a vibrant incubator going? How do you attract good talent? How do you then nurture them? I think those are very important points. And to make the incubator alive, like I was talking about the number of thousands of or millions of square feet which are coming up, but then you need to populate them, right? So I know in this short panel we're not going to be getting into detail, and there's more online. But I want to move to Chand, because Chand, one of the areas you've helped a lot in is in the step after what Rama spoke about, on connecting to corporates, connecting him to even tapping into things like CSR, because that's a key area. And like Astha was mentioning about the financial sustainability of incubators and not just the startups, right? How do you build these partnerships so that you present a much larger canvas for the startups that you support? And what's been your experience there?
Yeah, I think it's a fascinating area to get corporates involved with incubators. Now, as per policy, the money that is given to incubators is also set off against that mandatory 2% CSR spend. So there are two routes here. One is that most corporate CSR funding goes towards education, healthcare, and livelihoods. Almost 75% is covered by these three sectors. So corporates, when they go into social enterprise incubators, they find enough enterprises who are working in these areas who may be doing interesting things, and the money that the corporate provides the incubator can get directed towards one or more of these sectors. So that is one. The other is that a lot of incubators are working in sectors like agri, healthcare, education, and so on. And these may be of intrinsic value to corporates themselves to augment their own innovation, their own business model, and so on. So I've found that corporates like to engage with incubators to figure out whether they can look at some of these enterprises more closely and allow them market access, or depute some mentors and work with that enterprise to make it market ready. So there are these many ways. The incubator can also run dedicated accelerator programs which are sponsored by corporates, for example. So it just needs a lot of creative thinking to figure out how to mobilize corporates to work closely with incubators in these areas. Srini?
Thank you, Chan. I think, what you answered on is an aspect that is often overlooked, that the Indian government, as the policies that we have, are probably unique in the world, and nowhere else is structurally is there support for social entrepreneurship, right? Through the Companies Act and what's there in Schedule 6. And so that's something that I think is still largely untapped. And probably as capacity gets built, this route becomes more and more attractive, like what Chandras talked about. But to my last speaker, and not the least, Arun, who's been a mentor to both KIIT, now is looking at building, seeing best practice around the world. Arun, is there any aspect which you think is incredibly important in capacity building, both technically and from a talent angle, that you want to flag off, highlight? And I know you will be covering those things in detail later in the program. Arun?
Yeah. So my internet connection may be a little weak, so I apologize for that. But let me know if something is not heard. You're right, Srini, in that the program is very comprehensive. But I wanted to touch upon, people are looking at us and seeing Will Grow India, Will Grow US, and all these other definitive, defined Will Grow entities. I wanted to say that while there's a lot of focus on incubation, hand-holding incubators is something we have sort of identified as a separate function, and we are focusing on that, and that is the reason. One of the key things, so to go back to what Shankar spoke about, Asta spoke about, and Rama touched on, is that the incubator needs are very diverse, right? There is no cookie cutter program or need template that we can apply to this. So what we really learned in looking at how we have succeeded in training and launching other incubators is that, like we do for the startups, right? Somebody made a comment in the chat box about the cohorts being very diverse. So are the incubators. Even all across the world, incubators are very diverse. In fact, you can see the study on our on Will Grow US's webpage. We did a landscaping of the US incubators, and you would see that there is a lot of sector focus and no crosstalk happening and so on. And so I think the most important aspect is mentoring the incubator also. We recently did, Yale, a group of students at Yale studied, as part of their Global Social Entrepreneurship program, studied our training function, what Will Grow has done in terms of training and capacitating other incubators. Really interesting things we never thought about came out of it. For example, the incubator managers' work-life balance improved tremendously. For example, the cross-learning and the level of implementing a framework in the incubation management came up, which was not seen before. I think Shankar also alluded to this. We have a system that has codified all this knowledge into a workflow that's easy to track and easy to follow. I think these are things that are important. So what I'm trying to say is that a lot of this diversity leads to change happening through efforts of people. So the operations become a lot of very people-centric, right? There are people who move like engines, they move the incubator forward. And organizational knowledge sort of remains with them and all that. But it's important also to focus on the processes that mature an incubator and to codify all this into a system so that the effectiveness and the efficiency improve. And that, I think, is what I've seen happening all over the world. So where we are able to make a difference and where we are able to do this knowledge sharing and hand holding is the individual tailoring, handholding for each incubator, and that seems to have a tremendous effect. Also, in instituting best practices through a system that can be adapted and implemented according to their needs, right? Again, going back to this question of diversity, each incubator is unique, but the best practices can be shared all across the board. And then it's sort of a checkbox approach, right? This doesn't apply to me, that doesn't apply to me, and they customize that approach. In conclusion, I also wanted to say something that Chand touched upon, right? The participation of the private entities in this ecosystem is very important. What Wilgrow has been good at, incubation is something we are known for, but what we have actually been focusing on is stitching together this ecosystem, right? That is very important. That's where organizational support, partners like GIZ, partners like Startup India, all matters so much. Each one fulfills a particular function. Likewise, in this ecosystem, this private participation. I think Chand has been instrumental in some of these. We have also done this with great corporations where we have go-to-market partnerships for our incubatees with major corporate entities. We've had mentoring come in, right? There are, instead of the traditional CSR that Chand talked about, where incubatees are directly funded, or you buy a few products or something like that. We've actually instituted programs where they support incubation itself, right? So interesting experiments and interesting outcomes have happened in this, which goes to show that yes, this is a very diverse environment. But if we actually codify and have a framework and operate within that, it becomes very effective. Last point on this is a question we ask ourselves internally in Wilgrow, is what value are we adding to the entrepreneur? Because in my experience, most common questions are answered by Google, right? What are we actually helping is the question we commonly ask ourselves. We constantly question ourselves. It is that context sensitive support that we offer as an incubator that is important, and that takes them to the next step. Very critical, very low level, very practical step, whatever it might be, go to market, connections, technical advice, whatever it is. The same approach applies to incubators because they are so diverse. So common knowledge framework and all is available. We might have codified it with our experience. What is valuable is hand-holding by people like Chand and Rama and Srini, where in specific surgical interventions are given and taken. They take the incubator to the next step and so on. And I think that is important. There is a framework that is important, but also at the low level, this custom hand-holding and custom solutioning that is important.
I'm going to jump in. Yeah, I'm going to jump in because while we are ahead, we are over time. We've extended it by a little amount, but I sort of want to summarize because we've covered a lot of ground. And I want to sort of chronologically lay it down for our audience. Number one, Asta spoke about the 3 phases that we've gone through. And we are at a stage where a lot of the infrastructure, a lot of the assets exist on the ground. And we have to see how those assets can operationalize. When I mean asset and incubator and space exists, the people exist. Right? How do we make them work more efficiently in supporting entrepreneurs? Number one, GIZ and Shankar spoke about the policies, the ability to connect with corporate bodies, the ability to be able to see whether, not just a tier 1, but tier 2 cities, incubators, and universities can also come up to a level where they can start contributing, right? So this is structurally how we can see the movement. Rama spoke about just making sure that the incubator itself is vibrant. What do you do to make a incubator inviting place? And fourth, Chand spoke about how do you then make the incubator support the enterprise and get going out into the market in partnerships with corporates? How do you plug in to the existing mainstream systems, right? Either by getting into their distribution system, in partnerships and so on. And Arun, you spoke, I think, about a very important area, which I think the others also alluded to, which was about the talent and how you can build the capability of the folks in this, in incubators, number one. But number two is trying to make this knowledge into a protocol which you can repeat. which I think in some level is covered in the incubation playbook. Yeah. So I've sort of, for the listeners, I've sort of very quickly put it in a capsule. And in 1 or 2 minutes, I'm going to cover some questions, which there are lots of questions. So I'm going to pick a few. Which sector should an incubator cater to more while selecting a cohort? There is no sector. It depends on your strength, where you as an incubator are most confident. So where you're most confident, you're probably going to be most successful. You can help an entrepreneur pick that. Another one is talking about how do we engage industry to conduct dedicated accelerator programs. Like Chand was talking about, there is policy. There are the Companies Act offers funding, offers a route. It probably you'll need to start looking at business development, and maybe there's some skill that needs building. That's an area of capability building. Maybe the incubators program can do for you, right? Like Chand was talking about, like Azhar was speaking about the dry runs or demos and how to raise funds. That possibly is a kind of module that you would benefit from. Should we be reaching corporates for specific sector funding? The answer is yes and no. It depends on your work. Yeah. So if you have competence in healthcare, it'll be great to talk that language. If you're sector agnostic and if you're focused on livelihoods, then like Chand is talking about, it's a very big area in CSR. So the answer is, in a lot of places, depends on your strength, what your inclination is, play to it. And then this play, the incubators program can add to your strength. Yeah. So I've sort of combined a lot of these questions and given an answer. I hope I've been able to answer it. But at this, let me just stop here. Nazar and Asta, Shankar, Chand and Rama, Arun, we are also 12 minutes over time. Yeah. If there's any parting thoughts, I just want one last word from one individual. Whoever goes first, you have the last word.
I can summarize. I'd say it's all about collaboration and consortium building. It's not a competition. If we take that approach, this is what we've taken, the ecosystem growth is very positive and there's endless opportunity.
Thank you, Arun. Thank you. It's been fantastic. For more information, log on to our website. It details the curriculum. It details what modules will be covered. And I'm sure you can reach through the team to any of us. And best of luck, and see you all on the other side, as the program rolls out. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thank you. Looking forward to engaging with many of you. Yeah.